Good afternoon and welcome to Bayou Bets for Monday, March the 6th. As you can tell, it's been a busy day. We're still kind of putting things together here. If you didn't notice. I'm Zach Ewing, that's
TV,
Jim Derry.
Zach.
And we are here to talk about a lot of different things. But first and foremost, we're here to talk about the Saints signing Derek Carr, Jim.
I thought we were here to talk about posters and Caesar.
We are here to talk about posters.
Okay.
Tell the people about the posters.
Oh man, if you sign up with us through Caesar Sportsbook, you get the 3-poster set LSU giveaway, LSUposter.com. Bet just $10. You receive a commemorative poster set from us here at bet.NOLA.com and Caesar Sportsbook. It's time. You can go bet on the futures on the Saints to win the Super Bowl, to win the NFC South now. I mean, just put $10 on it. You never know. It's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the time is now to sign up. March Madness going on, everything else going on. So it's a big day in Saints world. As Jerry is here, he says he wants to jump in his car. I think a lot
Jerry.
of car shopping, a lot of car puns out there today.
Yeah, Jerry.
And that is our lead headline for the day. Saints sign the prize of the free agent pool in Derek Carr. And I know there are people who roll their eyes at that statement, but he was clearly the top free agent on the market. Well, technically he was the only free agent on the market until next week. But, barring, we'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers, if it's a trade or a release, Lamar Jackson, that sort of thing. But Derek Carr was the best sure thing out there.
Without question, and the people that are questioning the decision, it's the line that I can't think of a better line to use. Go back and feed the pigeons. We'll get into that in a little bit.
Okay, all right, and we'll also talk about what's up next for the Saints into free agency next week. One report out there said Derek Carr wanted to get this done early so that he could help recruit free agents to New Orleans, so that he could structure his contract in such a way that the Saints could fit more free agents under the salary cap. And so there's a lot to talk about. They obviously have a first-round pick and an early second-round pick to spend as well. So we will talk about what's next for the Saints offseason. Brief mention of the Pelicans. They are in Sacramento tonight, ending their road trip. 5.5-point underdogs. Disappointing Friday at Golden State. Had a chance to win that game.
Yeah, for sure. They should have won the game. Had a big lead in the first quarter, but you kind of feel it towards halftime. It slipped away. They fought as hard as they could, but look, you got 4 guys on the bench due to injury. Not going to help you. We'll see how they do in Sacramento. They have fared okay against Sacramento, but the last time I think they beat them, they had Zion, so it's a little bit different.
Yeah, and Sacramento playing very well right now, so that's going to be a surprise playoff team, it looks like. And then finally, it is March Madness. The LSU women, they lost a big lead as well in the SEC tournament semifinals against Tennessee, so they did not get their rematch with South Carolina, and I think at this point probably resigned to getting a number 2 seed in the
for sure. And what's worse is, now we'll get into it, but they may end up on the same side of the bracket as South Carolina now, because they're going to move from, I think, from being a potential the 4th number 1 to being the 4th number 2. It's very.
Well, that would put them in the same quadrant as South Carolina.
Exactly, which is what you don't want. So that could be worst case.
If they are number 6 or 7, then I think, unless they need to move teams around to avoid rematches, then they would be on the opposite bracket. So that's probably what they want to look for.
You would hope that they do that, but we'll get into that in a little bit.
We will see. Well, hey, let's dig into Derek Carr now, because this is the news of the week, of the month in this area.
You want me to really tick off Saints fans who don't like the signing more than they're already ticked off and really hate me? Here you go. You touched on something in the headline portion of this that said he's going to structure his contract so that the Saints can get more free agents in the door, which is going to be tough enough as it is because they're in cap hell. But he's already doing something. His name isn't even signed on the dotted line. This will really piss you off, guys. That he's doing something that Drew Brees would never do. Drew Brees would never restructured a contract to benefit the Saints. I can't say that never, because the last one that he did
the end of his career.
To end of his career, he deferred some money to what he restructured. But I'm talking about signing a contract We went through all these things. I don't know if people remember before the 2014 season, he had to resign, and he didn't budge, man. And the Saints were forced to make a decision, and they had to make a decision. And I'm not saying it was the wrong decision. Obviously, it was the right decision for then. But they went through 3, 7, and 9 lean years, and he was never willing until the end of his career to do something that Derek Carr is already doing. And look, Derek Carr knows that coming here, the Saints still need some help, and they're going to have to get it. We'll talk about all those things, but I like what I see. I wanted Derek Carr for this team. Weeks ago, we talked about it. Actually, I mean, if you go back, I thought they should have tried to get him before this past year. But it is what it is. They have a franchise quarterback, whether you like it or not. There's no question that Derek Carr is a franchise quarterback, and we'll get into the reasons why as we go along. And I think our closing segments both will have we're both on the same page with this.
Yeah. As you see at the bottom of the screen there, Saints odds have changed. I mean, they were 50-1 at Caesars to win the Super Bowl. They're now 30-1. I think they were 22-1 to win the NFC. They're now 14-1. They were second favorite slightly to Carolina to win the division. They're now clear favorites, almost even money, plus 130. And the win total, Jim's also gone up a full win.
Yeah, I don't like that 9.5.
I think 10-7 can be the expectation. I do.
I don't know. I think that's high. I don't think it's going to take 10 wins to win this division. First off, I think it's going to take 8 or 9. I think 9.5 is kind of shooting for the moon a little bit. I think you'll see that come down a little bit because I think that the sharps are going to jump on the under, especially because right now it's even money. The under is even money, and you got to lay juice to bet the over. I wouldn't bet that either way at the moment. I think 9, 10 is right around where you would probably put them at the moment. I think the one thing that they have going for them is the fact that the South stinks, kind of like the AFC South. Both Souths stink, and the Saints' schedule is going to be much easier this year than it was last year. So it's hard to compare. I mean, now that you have a real quarterback, so where would this 7-10 team have finished had they had this schedule last year? Maybe 8-9, maybe 9-8. It just kind of depends, but. We'll go along, and especially as we see as it shapes up, week by week, that's something you don't really want to bet right now. I wouldn't touch that win total right now, but I do like the Saints. I think there's a value at plus 130 because I got to be honest, I don't see anybody else in the division, and I know there's free agency and draft and all that stuff, but I don't think any of those three teams are going to be better in the season going in, and I certainly the only other team that I may even think about is Atlanta at plus 450, kind of depending on what they do. That may be a bargain right now that changes later on.
Yeah, it's difficult for me to place a bet here just without knowing. The Buccaneers are talking up Kyle Trask. Are they really going into the season with Kyle Trask as their quarterback? Would they make a play for Jameis Winston to return home, so to speak? The Panthers are picking at number 9. Would they trade up, maybe try to get to like number 4 or 5 and get C.J. Stroud? Are the Falcons really staying with Desmond Ridder? I mean, I actually think if the quarterback situation stays as is, the Saints' odds may go down further. I just don't think it. I don't think those three teams can realistically go into the season with the quarterbacks they have. They're going to have to do something. I
think there maybe is another team whose odds will go down, like the Falcons possibly. The Panthers might go up. I think 250 is kind of high. But the Saints aren't going to go down. If you want to bet on the Saints to win the NFC South, do it now. I think barring the unforeseen, I think even money is going to be the best you're going to get in a couple months.
Reed says that game got and that's one thing. They didn't have to trade for him, didn't have to give up a pick. I don't think Carr wanted to do that. How much do you think, Jim, of the possibility that Carr knew this is where he wanted to go from that first meeting with them and do your due diligence and test the market, but also like, hey, I'm not going to sign with you guys now because I don't want this team to have to give up a 3rd-round pick or whatever it would have been to Las Vegas.
I don't think the pick portion had anything to do with it. I think it goes back to what we were saying. He was not going to let the Raiders get anything off of his name, period. I think he did want to test the free agent waters. I think he wanted to see what the market was going to come up with early on. I think you were right last week when you said that that he wasn't going to wait, that it was going to be sooner rather than later. You were certainly right about that. And I do think that the Saints were probably always number one on his list. But at the same time, I think the thing that helped the Saints all along was the Jets don't know what they want to do. I think that the Jets were going to go full bore and take a full swing at Derek Carr and be willing to give him like 42, 44 million a year, which is probably what they would have been willing to give him, as opposed to, 4 years, 150. You can do the math, 100 guaranteed. You can do the math on that. He probably would have got a better deal with the Jets had they been all in, but they weren't all in because they really want Aaron Rodgers and they don't know where they stand right now. So he said, you know what, I'm not going to wait. And so I think the Saints were always had the upper hand. And I think the matters the last week with him probably say we probably won't know, but I would guess he probably went to the Jets, which is where the Jeremy Fowler report came out of. He probably went to the Jets. What are you offering me right now? I want to know. I want to get this done. And that's probably where it came down to. So it was probably either Saints or Jets, and I don't think he was ever going to look anywhere else.
Well, which Uncle Big Nick brings up the point here, like Jimmy Garoppolo's out there too. If the Jets don't get Aaron Rodgers, they're really left in the dark, so to speak. You see what I did there? They would get Jimmy G. Jerry says, the Saints will love the. Yeah, there will be no in between with this. I don't think. I think the faction who didn't like the Carr idea are going to hop all over it if it doesn't work.
Is now the time to ask our poll question? Because
I think it is. I think that's what we call a segue in the business. So we are asking you what you think, and the way we kind of put a point on this. Derek Carr, for all his success, he's been to 4 Pro Bowls. He was 3rd in the MVP voting in 2016. He's the Raiders franchise leader in passing yards and passing touchdowns. He has never won a playoff game. That 2016 season, their best year, that was the year he broke his leg in the regular season finale, didn't play, and then he only made the playoffs one other time, lost a close game to Joe Burrow's Bengals. So I think we talked about a lot of ways. How do you define success for Derek Carr in New Orleans? And we finally settled on, will he win a playoff game? I think the NFC South, could it be weak? Could he, maybe you win the division at 9-8 and then lose in the playoffs? I don't think anybody considers that a success. So what this comes down to is he going to get to the playoffs and win a playoff game at some point in his Saints career?
I think the way we asked it is, will it happen in 2023? I think
is that how we? Okay, all right. That makes it a little bit. That makes it a little bit less likely, of course, because you only have the one shot at it. But I will say, the Saints are completely in win now mode, Jim. So if it doesn't happen this year, the odds go down. So go to bet.NOLA.com and vote.
They should be in win mode now. I mean, this is a team we saw last year that they had, to me, a real quarterback and maybe one other weapon with him, and an O-line that just wasn't decimated for half the year. It's a different team. People want to point fingers at Dennis Allen, and I did it parts of the year too. Lord, I was harder on Pete Carmichael than probably anyone, and I still am. I'm not convinced that Pete Carmichael is going to lead this offense to the promised land. So, it's going to take a lot of Derek Carr, and that's, to me, the one thing that Andy Dalton did well, and maybe one of the reasons why they stuck with Andy Dalton, even though I don't agree with it, is Andy Dalton could probably, as a veteran quarterback and a guy that had led offenses for over a decade, could come in and say, I'm going to help call plays, call audibles, whatever. And Derek Carr is going to have a lot of input, a lot more input than any quarterback since Drew Brees, on what the Saints are going to call, what plays are going to call. They're going to work a whole offense around Derek Carr, something they could not do the last 2 years. So I hope that helps Pete Carmichael. But they're in a much different place. This team is a playoff caliber team. It was last year. It was the year before that. They didn't make the playoffs the last 2 years, but they were a playoff caliber team. And now, to me, with a real quarterback, this team's future is much brighter than it was 2 months ago. And, I didn't see this coming. I didn't think they were going to be able to pull it off a couple of months ago. I thought they were going to be stuck having to draft one or being stuck with going status quo. And now they have a real quarterback, and let's see what they do in the draft. And if they can get another offensive lineman, they keep the offensive line healthy and maybe get another wide receiver or two, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think, the people who talked about tanking and getting Caleb Williams. The roster's too good for that. It was too good. Even if you tried to do that and released traded Cam Jordan, released Alvin Kamara, did what made yourself as bad as possible, you probably still only end up with the number 7 or 8 pick, and you're not getting Caleb Williams. Like
I think
that was just
those
crazy
people.
talk.
I talk about feeding the pigeons. I think those are the people the pigeons have been feeding. Um, they must have been eating bird seed or something. I don't know to think that was a good idea. But again, I'm going to save my full argument. Anybody that's listened to me at all the past month and a half knows what I think about this. But I'm going to save my argument for why Derek Carr is the no question going to be the best fit for this team and the best fit for Derek Carr. And we're going to get into that why and why his past numbers necessarily. People like to point out some of his numbers throughout his 9-year career, and they're pedestrian and all these things. I'm going to tell you why his numbers are going to instantly go up and be better. And we're going to get into that at the end of the show.
One more question before we move on to a couple of other things, Jim. Andy Dalton as a backup in 2023, yes or no?
Oh, I'd love it. If they can make it work, great. I think that's exactly what he probably A, wants to be, and B, should be. I think Andy Dalton is one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league. You just don't want him starting. So I'm all for Andy Dalton coming back as a backup if that's what he wants to do, if they can make it work. So, yeah, if they can make it work, great.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Jameis Winston, Tampa Bay.
Bye-bye.
You think he gets a chance to start somewhere?
Yeah, I do. I mean, someone's going to start him, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if it happens in the division. I mean, look, would you be surprised if they signed a 2-year deal with Atlanta and they try to, I think that's a good fit for him, actually, if he went to like in Atlanta and they try to work Desmond Ridder, because I think they believe in Desmond Ridder, but I think you saw at the end of the season there that he wasn't quite ready. Carolina needs a quarterback desperately. Could he work with Frank Reich? I don't know. Frank Reich's a quarterback, and we saw what Sean Payton was able to do for Jameis Winston, so maybe he's a good fit in Carolina. But I do think Jameis Winston will get a chance to start next year. Absolutely.
All right, I lied. We're not going to move on just yet. There's still a few more things to talk about.
Could he go to the Raiders?
And yeah, could be. I do think they'll probably look in the draft. Speaking of the draft, Jerry asked a good question. Do you still think we need to draft a running back? Kamara's going to court July 31st. I think, whether he's found guilty or not, there will be some sort of a suspension, I would think. Hill and Davis restructure their contracts. That's all part of getting under the cap. I absolutely think the Saints need a running back, whether it's in the draft, whether they find somebody in free agency, an Alexander Madison or somebody. They besides Kamara, you've got to have somebody to back him up. And, Kamara's not getting any younger. At some point, you're going to want to have the next RB1.
Not only do they need to draft a running back, they better. Even if they get one in free agency, they better draft a running back. And I said this, my son called me, asked me what I think about Carr right before we got on the show. And look, if somehow Robinson's still available at 29, I don't think he will be. But if somehow he is, or if he's lingering around 23, 24, and the Saints want to trade up, I think that would be an outstanding fit for this team. And if they don't get him, Tajay Sharp or Tulane, I think it's the next Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara was a 3rd-round pick, remember, and I think that Tajay Sharp is going to be a similar kind of running back. And I think he's going to be moving up draft boards. I'd be surprised if he makes it out of the 2nd round now, especially with all the stuff that's coming up. So that's another name to look for. But if the Saints can get one of those 2 guys, absolutely go get him. Kid from Alabama. There are a few running backs out there, and I think that you need to spend one of your picks in the top 2 rounds to get a running back. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think running back, and then their other big need right now is defensive tackle. That room's pretty empty. So I think those may be your first 2 picks.
To me, I think the 1A, 1B, and 1C, and you can put them in any order you want, a running back, they need another receiver, and they absolutely need another offensive lineman. I get that we need I can't say we. I get that the Saints need help along the defensive front, but to me that's not a priority. That's also more easily solved in free agency because the way the Saints play, they don't need a big name up there. They can make a lot of people work, as we saw Passanio re-signed a couple of weeks ago, or was it last week? I don't remember. But the Saints can make players work there. They can get journeymen to come in and help there along the front.
I'll push back on that because I think their ends are fine. Their pass rush is fine. they struggled to stop the run on the interior last year. They could really use a big guy.
Well, they also had injuries at linebacker, which didn't help either. Pete Werner missed a lot of the season. Caden Ellis was kind of learning on the fly. Demario Davis just didn't have the kind of season that you expect him to have. So we'll see. I don't disagree that they don't need help there, but I think they have. I gotta say, the first part of this draft to me needs to be all offense, because there is no question. Look at what they did on offense, and the number steadily went down all season, not just because of Andy Dalton, not just because of the quarterback situation, because really there were plenty of games where Andy Dalton was just fine. I mean, we talk about his numbers are always the same. It wasn't all his fault. The play calling, we're not going to go into that whole part again. But I think if you just look at the overall, course of the last season, I think it's clear that offense needs to be high priority. Jeff Duncan likes to say the Saints don't draft like that. They draft best player available. Horse hockey. They're going to be drafting offense early in this draft, and they know they need that.
Uncle Big Nick, you talk about receiver as a need.
Buttons.
Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I think that Derek Carr also helps. Yeah, there you go.
That was his tweet after the news came out.
I didn't even see that, and I said this. I said this earlier. Also, talking with someone. This is going to help facilitate Mike Thomas wanting to come back. You can hate him all you want, and you can be pissed off at him all you want, but there's no question that the Saints are a better team if he comes back and plays, even if he's half of his old self. There's zero doubt about that. And if he's think of he at this point, he'd probably be a number 2 receiver, right? I mean, you got to think Chris Olave is the number 1.
He would certainly be a nice complement to Olave. Olave and Rashid Shaheed are your deep threats. Use the guy underneath. I mean,
Olave can be just about anything. I think to me, Olave's a potential All-Pro receiver at some point in his career. To me, he has that look that he could be. But I got to say, I mean, if Michael Thomas comes back and plays 13, 14 games next year, and with a guy like Derek Carr, that just changes his mindset. And there's no question Michael Thomas is all about mindset. So it would not surprise me at all if Michael Thomas is a significant part of this team next year and plays a huge role in, and there you go. You got a 1-2. But I do think the Saints will draft a receiver fairly early and probably get a seasoned veteran in free agency, the likes of a Jarvis Landry. I'm not saying Jarvis Landry to come back. I'm just saying the likes of a Jarvis Landry.
I mean, I think if Thomas comes back, number one, it'll be on a different contract. This contract they restructured is a poison pill. He will be released and then potentially sign a new contract. The other thing is he doesn't I think your point is he doesn't have to be the number 1. He does not have to come back and be an All-Pro. He can come back and be 75% of what he was.
That's right.
And that's exactly what the Saints need, is that guy who can convert a 3rd and 5.
Yep. I agree.
Cashew is happy with a veteran, so I think we're all pretty happy. I think the Saints cashed in for sure, and that's a good to Uncle Big. Can we talk about the players? Okay, let's talk about the players. We'll move on to a couple other things. We will come back to Derek Carr later in the show, but the best non-major golf tournament of the year is this week, so we want to talk about that and sort of, Jim, you and I's passion for golf betting. Also going to get into a little college basketball, and then we will circle back to Derek Carr and the Saints. Players' Championship odds. You can find different odds, different prices in the market, of course. This is what we've got right now. Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy, your co-favorites, plus 850. No surprise there. Scottie Scheffler right behind them. I think, as we talk about kind of how we like to bet golf, Jim, we're not typically interested in those favorites, although you can see why it's fun if you're new to it. Even if you get the best player in the world, you're getting plus 850. You're getting a pretty good payback.
Well, we talk about in pre-production about, you're a huge college basketball fan. And I like college basketball. Don't get me wrong. I love March Madness. But if you're talking about where you want to make money, if you're doing this to make a little money, there's no question, unless you get super lucky and have, you're 70% right, that you're going to have a chance to make more money in golf. Because if you, let's say you bet $10 on 6 games on this weekend and you get 4 of them right, well, you're plus $18. Okay. Whereas if you take $10 and you think Jon Rahm is going to win the PGA Championship and you put it on him to win the championship, and he wins, you got $85. And if you lose, you only lost $10. So, I mean, to me, there are greater benefits to betting on golf. You can take 3 or 4 guys, and you don't have to bet them to win. You know, I personally like Jordan Spieth. I think the way he's been playing lately leads him. He's getting closer to his old self when he was the best player in golf. And to me, at plus 3,200, you take $10 and you put it on Jordan Spieth to win. If he wins, that's $320 you get. So, I mean, if you're going to bet 6 college basketball games this weekend, make it 4. Put $10 on Jordan Spieth. Put $10 on someone else. You know, like Patrick Cantlay this weekend. I haven't done my full analysis, which I will do tomorrow, I guess Wednesday. I'm off tomorrow. But, you know, to me, and we talk about betting 101. If you're betting to have fun, then I guess it doesn't matter. Go ahead and bet college basketball because that's going to be what you're going to be watching. If you don't like golf at all, you're probably not going to bet on golf. There's just more money to be made. And through the course of the season, Zach, you and I have talked about it. You know, I had 7 or 8 outrights last year. You hit 7 or 8 outrights. I don't care what you're betting. You're going to be positive on golf for the year. Now, that's not easy to do. I know it's going to be hard to repeat that. But if you do your due diligence, there's a lot more money to be had on golf if that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and I mean, there are some prices here. Like Uncle Big Nick mentioned Morikawa at 28-1. You said Spieth at 32. I like Zalatoris at 32-1, and also Xander Schauffele at 25-1. I mean, you don't see that price on that guy
you
ever.
Can take, you know, Zach, if you want to just take $80, bet $10 on Xander, Hovland, Morikawa. If you hit one of those guys, you're going to win big. That's the difference about golf and basketball. You can take 8 guys for $10. If one of those 20-1 plus shots win, you're going to win money. And then, you know, maybe you bet some live. You know, I put myself on a budget for golf. I'll bet about 60% of my budget pre-tournament, and then I'll pick 2 or 3 guys that I think are good values live, and I'll bet them either Thursday or Friday, and then I'll leave it alone. Now, sometimes I'll hedge if I have like 2 guys and 2 guys that are battling, and there's one other guy. It's going to be one of 3 guys on Sunday. I may hedge if I know I'm gonna win. But more times than not, I'll do some live betting on Thursday and Friday at a guy that's a good value.
Yeah, and you can also check top 20 markets, top 40 markets, head-to-head markets. Check the weather before you bet too.
For sure.
You know, wait till Tuesday or Wednesday, see what the weather's doing, especially Thursday and Friday, because for those who don't know, the way it works is if you go off with an early tee time Thursday, you get an afternoon tee time Friday, and then vice versa. If you're afternoon Friday, you get afternoon Thursday, you get morning on Friday. And the reason for that is the courses typically get tougher as the day goes on, as the greens get more sun, as the wind maybe picks up. But sometimes there is a day where it's going to be way windier in the afternoon, and you're better off playing that other wave. And
I haven't checked out the weather enough yet, Zach, but if it's going to be hot and dry like it's been here, those greens by Sunday are going to be like the greens at Bay Hill yesterday and really tough to putt on. So you don't want someone that's not a good putter. And you can go through and figure out who those guys are. But we're gonna talk about that, and I'm gonna probably put something together on Wednesday about golf.
All right. The other thing, of course, it is March, and so we've got March Madness. I mean, listen, I love the players also. I'm going to be watching that, but I'm going to be giving my remote the workout because I love championship week in college basketball. To me, it's maybe even better than March Madness. I know the games don't mean as much, but there's like 7 games on from 10 a.m. to midnight every single day. The SEC tournament starts Wednesday. LSU, I get it. They're not good. They're the 14 seed. You see them at the bottom of the screen. Those 4 teams that have to play Wednesday are all 150-1. None of them are winning this tournament.
No.
But it is interesting to look at this, and there can be some values in the futures markets for these conference tournaments. I don't find them to be consistent enough, but it is interesting.
Plus 1,600? They're
the 10 seed. Or no, I'm sorry, Arkansas is the 10 seed, and they're only 15-1 to win this thing. Auburn's the 7 seed. Here's the discussion point, because the top 4 teams on this list are clearly in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
They don't have a ton to gain from winning. Now, you could say if Alabama goes out early, maybe they drop from a 1 seed. They want to make sure they take care of business maybe there's a seed line or two. But ultimately, you're not going to go play an injured guy and force him to play this week if you're one of those teams. They don't have anything to gain. Teams like Arkansas and Auburn still technically on the bubble. A team like Missouri that could get itself off the 8-9 seed line, or obviously lower down, Vandy's not going to make the tournament unless they win this tournament. So those guys are the ones who really may play hard. Do you think that the winner comes from one of these top 4 teams, Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, or Texas A&M?
I think Alabama is clearly the best team in this tournament. I think that the 1 seed matters to them. I know they have had their issues, but even though they lost on Saturday to Texas A&M team that really fought hard, by the way, and that's going to be a team that it's going to be a mess for someone to get Texas A&M a higher seed.
They're not fun to play against.
Not at all. And so I do think it's going to be either Alabama or Texas A&M. But at the same time, a flyer on Auburn or a flyer on Mizzou might not be bad at those odds, even if it's $5 or whatever. But I do think Alabama is the best team in the tournament. I think it matters to them. I think they want that 1 seed, and I think they're going to get it. I think they're going to win this tournament.
I think you mentioned Mizzou, and that's my alma mater. I follow them, okay, full disclosure. But they are the 4 seed in this tournament. They have a double bye, so they will not be upset early. They're going to be around. They don't start playing until Friday. At 25-1, now, having said that, the way if you look at analytics, they will likely be an underdog to 5 seed Tennessee if that's who they play. They will certainly be an underdog.
Well, Tennessee's got a problem. I mean, they lost.
Zakai Ziegler's out. Yeah,
correct. So I mean and if Mizzou gets hot, then and then they would get Alabama, I guess. So not great matchups, but really when you get to that point and then you get to the semifinals, doesn't really matter what your matchups are. It is what it is. If you're going to win the tournament, as far as the futures odds go. So, and I think if they were somehow able to upset an Alabama on a Saturday, look out. They could win it on Sunday no matter who they play. So, 25-1, why not?
The point is, once you get to the semis, if you have a 25-1 shot, you're in good shape because now you can start playing the hedging game and those sort of things. So
give me $5.
Definitely some possibilities in there. No doubt about it. And you talk about Arkansas and Auburn. They're the 7-10 game. They match up with A&M. They're not fun to play, but they're also not a juggernaut full of 5-star kids like Kentucky where you're going to be in the game, too. You'll have a chance
Arkansas, to beat Texas. Auburn against A&M. Phenomenal game.
Yeah, it'll be a fun tournament.
Sure. It is. It really is going to be. And the SEC is better in basketball. It's been getting a little bit better. And it's not going to be Kentucky. Do not put any money in Kentucky. They're not. I don't think they're very good. I get Shibwe is a great basketball player, but I don't think they're any good. One
thing about Kentucky is they've only been using 6 players. It's been a really tight rotation, and so you're talking. They do have the double bye, but you're still talking about winning 3 games in 3 days with a 6-man rotation. I think they play 7, but the 7th guy's only a handful of minutes a game. So it's like, that's not the kind of team I want to back in a tournament.
I think they're an early out. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they didn't make it to the second weekend of March Madness.
All right. Okay, that is a hot take, and we've got our hot takes ready. Derek Carr signing with the Saints. That's the news of the day. That's the news of the week, of the month for the sports scene here in New Orleans. So we've each got a take, Jim. And again, we want y'all to also tell us what you think. Will Derek Carr win a playoff game with the Saints? Vote at bet.NOLA.com. And we will give you the results on Thursday's Bayou Bets show on this same channel. In the meantime, if you like what you hear, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. The Bayou Bets YouTube channel is where you can find all of our content. Spencer the Guru will be back with the Fantasy Roundup tomorrow. He's going to be talking some fantasy baseball, some fantasy football, maybe the impact of Derek Carr on fantasy football. So tune into that at 2 p.m. on these channels. And we will be back with you 4 o'clock on Thursday, and we'll have the poll results. We'll also have more good stuff on golf, college basketball, and whatever else. But in the meantime, let's finish up with Derek Carr. And those who watch the show know I have known Derek for a long time. I covered him in high school. Just so happened I worked at the Bakersfield Californian for almost 10 years, and I started there in 2007. And in 2008, Derek Carr's family moved from Houston. He was going to school, I believe, in Cypress, Texas, suburban Houston, and they moved back to the Central Valley of California for his senior year of high school. he played at Bakersfield Christian High School. One thing about Derek is every step of the way, he has made choices that show a pattern. And that is, number one, he's loyal. If he tells you something, the guy said it from the beginning. He wanted to be a Raider for life. It doesn't work out that way in the NFL for very long, but that's what he wanted. And it didn't happen. But I think he's going to be loyal to New Orleans, and we've seen it already. When he came to Bakersfield, Bakersfield Christian was a small school of less than 500 students. He certainly did not have to go to that school. He could have gone to a big public school. There were others where they threw the ball around where he was going to get a chance to showcase his talents to be a recruit. He didn't do it. He went to Bakersfield Christian, turned them into a section championship team. Then he went to Fresno State. He committed early to Fresno State, his brother's school. Never considered anywhere else, not seriously anyway. Probably could have gone somewhere else. Went to Fresno State, drafted in the second round by the Raiders. You're seeing loyalty, and you're seeing a guy who's unafraid to say, I don't care what conventional wisdom says. This is the best situation for me. And he did it in high school, then he did it in college, and now you're seeing it in the pros, where a lot of people would say, go to New York. They've got they're building a great young team. You get the New York market. Your brother played in New York. What a fantastic opportunity to put the spotlight on yourself. And he said, you know what? I like New Orleans better. I'm going to go be a Saint. And that's the pattern, and that's what you're getting with Derek Carr. Ultimately, will he be a success here? Remains to be seen. But I think that this is the perfect fit for Carr, and I think that Carr is the perfect fit for the Saints.
Well, Zach, I agree with you. And I'm going to give you some numbers of what backs it up. First of all, for the past few weeks, and especially throughout today, I've heard the yahoos of yahoos. I don't know what you're doing on Sundays, but it's not watching football, because you haven't been watching the Saints if you think the Saints didn't need Derek Carr. You also haven't been watching football if you don't think Derek Carr is a massive upgrade over what this team has had over the past 2 years, and frankly, over the past 3 to 4 years since Drew Brees' arm turned into a limp noodle. So there's no question that Derek Carr gives the Saints the best chance to win now. I understand the arguments, and there are valid points that if you're talking about long-term rebuilding mode, that the Saints would have been better off to get certain quarterbacks in the draft, which I don't agree with, but at least I could understand those points. But the people that are out there just poo-pooing on Derek Carr because he has pedestrian quote-unquote numbers, you're wrong. And let me tell you why you're wrong. First of all, you're comparing apples to oranges. When he comes to this team, I guess now, you're looking at his offensive line, two things. Number one is the offensive line. His offensive line with the Saints, even as banged up as the Saints were last year, is a massive upgrade over what they had in Las Vegas, which is terrible. He's never had a good offensive line throughout his entire career. In fact, through his 142-game career, he's been sacked 264 times, which computes to 1.86 times per game. Compare that to Drew Brees throughout his career, which was throughout his entire career with the Saints was sacked 1.44 times. And even through a period of 4 years when the Saints were 32-32 from 2013 to 2016, he was sacked 124 times in 4 years, 2 sacks per game. So, let's compare it to now. What about Andy Dalton? Well, Andy Dalton was sacked 25 times in 14 games last year, 1.79 sacks per game. What I'm getting at is Andy Dalton isn't nearly as mobile as Derek Carr. He doesn't run a lot, but he knows if you watch film of him, there aren't a lot of players that know how to move in the pocket better than Derek Carr. His vision is better than most quarterbacks. He can't do what Lamar Jackson can do. Who can? He can't do what Patrick Mahomes can do. Who can? But Derek Carr is perfect for this offense. And one thing that Derek Carr also has never had is a real defense on the other side of the ball. You want to talk about what Derek Carr has gone through with the Raiders? The best defense he ever had in 9 years was ranked 14th in the NFL, and that was in 2021. That was a 10-7 team that made it to the first round of the playoffs that was 3 yards away from beating the Cincinnati Bengals that went on to the Super Bowl. Other than that, the best defense he ever had was 19th, and there was no other team. All 7 of his other teams had defenses ranked 20th or worse. So he's coming to a team that now has been ranked in the top 10 over the past 3 years and in the top 11 over the past 4 years. It's going to make a world of difference. The Derek Carr you poo-pooers think you're going to get is not the Derek Carr you're going to get. Whether it makes the Saints a playoff team, I'm not quite ready to say that, but it certainly makes them a much better football team, and you're going to see it right away.
I agree with you. I think there will come a point, week 1, week 2, week 3, where Carr makes a throw, and everybody goes, oh, that's what we're getting. Right. And so, does he make mistakes? Sure he does. Is he perfect? No, he's not won a playoff game yet. There are some reasons that are on him for that, right? Like he has failed in certain situations at times. His numbers dip under pressure, all those sorts of things. But there is no doubt that he is in a better situation in New Orleans than he was in Las Vegas or Oakland. And by the way, it's not like they were terrible every year. They did have some pretty good teams, and a lot of that was because of what he was able to do.
Zach, Drew Brees is gone, and he's never coming back. So stop comparing all these people, most of these poo-pooers, all they can think about, and a lot of them are probably 20-something, 30-something. And in their defense, all they've known throughout their life, or most of their football-watching life, is life with Drew Brees. It doesn't work that way for franchises. That's a once-in-a-generation type kind of quarterback, and it just doesn't happen. We're going to be talking more about that, I'm sure, on Thursday's Bayou Bet show. And the season opener of Datitude, which I was going to focus on the Pels. I don't know how we can't focus on Derek Carr. That's probably what we'll be talking about on Friday on Datitude.
Which of the bets below, to close the show, which of the bets below are you making? If you had to make one
I
today?
am definitely going to make the Saints to win the NFC South. Like I told you, I don't think you're going to get any better value at this point. I wish I would have bet it before at because I think it was plus 190 or plus 200 or something like that.
You could even get plus 210, I think.
Okay, so I think that number plus 130 is the best you're going to get. I'm not going to waste money. Well, I don't say waste money. I mean, I might put $10 on him to win the Super Bowl. In fact, I think I did that already at plus 5,000. I don't like the win total. I'll wait to see if that goes down. It may. I don't like to win NFC. I think that's a little bit of a leap. But I do think in this terrible division, I think they are better than a 50-50 chance that they win the division, which I think you're getting great value at plus 130. And again, bet it now. That number is not going to get any better than that, no matter what anyone else does. So that's the one I'm going to bet.
I don't mind the NFC bet. Derek, if you had to rank NFC quarterbacks, let's assume Aaron Rodgers leaves the NFC. Derek Carr is probably behind Jalen Hurts. Yeah. You could say he's behind Dak Prescott.
No.
But other than that, I don't.
Dak Prescott,
is he second or third among NFC? Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, but Kirk Cousins can't win a big game.
Justin Fields, is he there yet? Probably not.
Oh, God, no.
Well, I know you don't like him. I like him, but I don't think he's there yet.
God, no.
Geno Smith, Jimmy Garoppolo. No. Like I think Derek is in the top 3.
Man, he could be. I mean, when you start thinking, he's certainly going to be I don't care who comes, unless some fluke and Lamar Jackson goes to Atlanta, which is a long, long shot. Barring that, I don't see any way that he's not the best quarterback in the NFC South.
Yeah, if Carolina somehow gets up to number 1 and takes up Bryce Young, we'll see what Bryce Young is. But that's going to take an awful lot.
As a rookie. Yeah, not coming in as a rookie. I'd still rather have Derek Carr. At least this year. I'm not talking about long term. Obviously, you'd rather have Bryce Young, but I think. But
all right, we'll see. Exciting stuff. Derek Carr is a New Orleans Saint. We will have much more on this as we go forward, much more on how the odds go. Turbo says he thinks Derek Carr is a top 2 quarterback in the NFC.
Could be.
I would probably put him third. I'd probably put him behind Dak.
I'm going to have to go through that, and that's definitely something we'll talk about that on Datitude. But he's at least, Zach, I think he and Dak are a lot alike, which some people may think is a bad thing just because they hate the Cowboys. I mean, if people that hate something, they just hate them. But I think he and Dak, I think that's a very comparable kind of quarterback.
But, it is interesting, and it certainly makes the Saints offseason much more intriguing. Now they don't have to. I mean, if Hendon Hooker falls to you at 71 because everyone's afraid of the injury, you can take him if you want to. But
why?
You don't feel like you have to now.
You can't take it. You can take a quarterback if you want. I would say no because you don't need to now. But you can't take a Hendon Hooker. He's 25 years old with an ACL injury, and you got a quarterback that's going to be here for 4 years. So what you going to hold on to Hendon Hooker and let him play when he's 30?
He's just the name I threw out there. But
I get it.
The point is they can now draft for other needs and not spend a lot of money on it.
100%.
They probably don't have a lot of salary cap movement left, but they can go target the dollars they do have left where they need it. This is just an enormous step for them. And we will continue to talk about it all off-season long. So we'll also be back Thursday, 4 o'clock. More Derek Carr, some Pelicans, some college basketball, and some golf. We thank each and every one of you for joining us. And be back here at 4 o'clock on Thursday live.
Check us out on Instagram.
Show your comments. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and all of that good stuff. For Jim Derry, I'm Zach Ewing. Thanks for watching Bayou Bets.